People ask me all the time, how can I get meetings? I like to say, how can I get more meetings? But really the most common question is, how can I get meetings with federal buyers? And you might be able to relate to that, right? And I get it. Getting meetings is, it's kind of a big deal. And if you're not good at it, it can feel like it's hard. It can literally be hard to get meetings, right? When you're not good at it, but it is a skill and you can develop this skill. And I'm going to talk about it later. I realize that in the federal market, people out there, me included, right? We say, success in the federal market, it's dependent on relationships. The more relationships and the better relationships you have within the federal agencies, the more chance of success you're going to have, the bigger companies you can build, et cetera. But with no meetings, that advice is just useless. If I can't get in and have that first meeting, yet you're telling me I have to have relationships in order to succeed, well, that's all overwhelming. And I want to drive towards that, right? I get that it can be overwhelming or a little anxious, but I truly believe that this is a skill. It's not a secret. It's not talent. It's not charisma. It is a skill to be able to get in and schedule meetings with a potential customer, with anybody really on the industry side or the government side. It's a skill, and it's a skill you can develop, and it's something I'm going to dive into today as we move forward. So I want to talk to you about, I'm going to give you at the end 7 easy steps for landing meetings, but I want to talk to you about just the whole idea around meetings in general. I like to make sure we're level set on the training we're walking into. So I'm going to break up today's training into the 3 categories. I think you can see it here. First thing I want to just reinforce is, why are meetings so important? Related to business development, related to capture, and I'll explain that in a minute. And then I want to talk about how meetings and having these meetings can be aligned to the 7-step process that I teach for federal revenue success. When you understand a 7-step process like I teach, and then you start understanding where the meetings come into play, then it really starts driving your energy towards, man, I got to develop this skill and get in there. So we'll talk about that. And then the last thing I'm going to talk about, I'm going to give you very tactical steps, 7 steps for landing more meetings with federal buyers, right? And if you haven't had meetings before, then I will give you tips for how to have those meetings. If that's what you want, if you understand that meetings are a pathway to success for you, definitely nod your head, but put meeting rocks into the chat, right? Meetings rock in the chat. Just let me know you understand how valuable meetings can be, and then I'm going to keep telling you about it. If you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonough. I'm the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce, and I am CEO and co-founder of GovCon in a Box. I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business government contractor after I got out of the Army. And since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we're going to have repeatable, predictable results. And this is what I want for you. This is what I'm going to be teaching you today, is how to have repeatable, predictable results on scheduling meetings with federal buyers. Super exciting to see people put meetings rock in the chat. It's reinforcing and it's exciting. And government contracting, it doesn't have to be so difficult. If we work together, if we come together as a community, it can really go well. I literally just came off a meeting with a customer and then one of their teammates, helping them get a first meeting with somebody because they were running into a challenge. We all can be helping each other. And when you engage in chat, you're engaging in your community. So I love that. So not to get distracted, but thank you for engaging in there. If you haven't done so already, make sure you subscribe to our Government Contracting Success newsletter. I put out a ton of content in there on how you can succeed as a government contractor. Tomorrow we're doing training, and that one is a favorite of mine, Why Federal Buyers Don't Call You Back. I think the title is Top 3 Reasons Federal Buyers Don't Call You and Steps to Change That. And actually, for the fun of it, I'm going to drop that right into the chat. If somebody can copy it and give it a title, that would be awesome. But make sure you register for that training. If you're wondering why you're not getting people calling you back, this is a step, right? And these trainings I'm doing this week, they all align to each other. I want to congratulate the companies that are in the 100 Club. We run GovCon in a Box. It's an AI-powered tool set that's designed to make your life easier as a government contractor. And we created a free tool called Federal Visibility Score. And the Federal Visibility Score is what I've been teaching for 8 years or whatever it's been, is that if you're not visible to federal buyers where they're looking, then you're invisible to the federal buyer. And if they can't find you, how can they buy from you? So go to govconinabox.com and check out what your score is. But for the moment, there's 360,000 small businesses in DSBS, 360,000 small businesses selling to the federal government. Only 102 of them have a 100% score or perfect 100 score. I want you to have that score. Also, if you're in the 100 Club, let us know. Put it in the chat. I'm in the 100 Club. Somebody did something I thought was pretty cool. They're like, hey, I'm number 42 or whatever. And it's pretty cool to see that. Okay, so let's get rocking and rolling on understanding why meetings are so vital to your success, right? Why are meetings important in government contracting? I'm going to talk about this from two different angles, from business development and from capture. If you're not familiar with business development, in the federal market, we call sales business development and capture. Basically, business development is you're out there trying to understand the agency, build relationships, and identify opportunities that you can pursue and win contracts on. Right? From a high level, that's what that is. Capture is taking one of those opportunities you found and doing the work necessary to try to win it. So from a very high level, that's what BD and capture are. When you think about meetings and how they align to the business development efforts you will do, I put a couple of things down here. First off, when you have meetings, you're able to understand the agency more. There's a great line that people don't care what you know until they know that you care. Well, one of the ways you can show that you care is begin to ask them questions about their agency. When you have meetings, you can understand the agency and its purpose, the mission that the Army has, the mission that the Environmental Protection Agency has. And along with that, as you go down in subordinate commands or subordinate offices, you can understand what their mission is, right? So if the Army's mission is to fight wars, well, the HR department's mission is not to fight wars. It's something else, right? What is that? Is it to enable the Army to be able to accomplish its mission? And so understanding the subordinate missions and how they all tie to the upper missions is really important. This is understanding your customer or understanding the agency. The next reason you want to really pay attention to having meetings and why they're important to business development is that they help you start and build relationships. I said a minute ago that having relationships is a huge factor in the success you're going to have as a government contractor. If you can build relationships with industry partners, with federal agency buyers, when you can build those relationships, you're going to have a lot better chance at winning contracts. And so having these early meetings is really that first step to starting and building a relationship. You want to have relationships with acquisition, the contracting officer, so acquisition offices or contract shops, and with program offices. Program offices are the people with the need. And then you also want to have relationships with teaming partners, companies that have won, large and small businesses, companies that have won inside the agency you're trying to get into. And then the last thing is when you have meetings as it relates to business development, you're going to be able to hear about opportunities. It's one thing to hear about opportunities in SAM, which is fine. It's another thing to hear about it when they come out at eBuy or GSA, right? But if you can get closer in, we call this shifting left in the sales process or the acquisition lifecycle. You start hearing about opportunities because you're in there having meetings and talking to the customer about their needs. And then they go, well, you know what? We're actually going to drop a source of sought notice. You should watch for that. You're not going to hear anything that shouldn't be shared, but sometimes just showing up is the way you learn about a customer. If that makes sense, put showing up in the chat. Just let me know that you are tracking on that. And I'm going to move on to capture, right? So meetings are important for business development. Now with capture, if you're thinking about one opportunity, it's kind of like business development on steroids. You're really focusing your energy into this one opportunity. You want to win it. And so one of the things meetings with government buyers enable you to do is you can start shaping the requirements. And I'm not going to go a lot into this today. In fact, I was going to say this earlier. Everything I'm teaching today, you can find 100+ video trainings, replays that I've done, breaking it down. Like, for example, I say enables you to shape requirements. I have many videos that teach you about how to shape requirements. And so if you need to do a deep dive, you can go in there. But a reason it's important is when you shape requirements, now you're starting to make that opportunity fit better for you. You're shaving off the areas that might be weak for you, and you're filling in areas that are your strengths. This is shaping requirements at a very generic high level. The next thing is you can shape the acquisition approach. An example of the acquisition approach is which NAICS code the government uses. If you can get that NAICS code to be one that has a lower threshold, maybe you can push some of your competitors out. Well, having a meeting with a contracting officer and talking to them about, hey, this NAICS code is probably a better one for this type of work. It aligns from the scope. Also, you've used it before in the past, blah, blah, blah. That's an example of shaping the acquisition approach. But the way you do that is having these meetings. If you can get in and talk to the contracting officer about some of their decisions, you might be able to influence them. And the last one is it really enables you to understand the customer better. And this is vital. So many people see an opportunity, a proposal or an RFP comes out, and they basically just respond. They might go to GovWin and see what GovWin says or something. But unless you go in and have a meeting with the customer, you don't understand that customer. Even if you read their document, it says background, understand us. That's not understanding them. That's just reading a document that all the competitors are reading. What you want to do is to get in there and expand on their needs and the challenges that they have. You want to understand the objectives. It's one thing to look at a set of objectives that's written on paper, but what are you really trying to accomplish? Understanding this enables you to begin to take those and write a much stronger proposal. And the last thing is you want to make sure you're aligning, in my opinion, your proposal to the broader agency and department goals that a program office might have. So this shop down here might have this need here, right? And then you got an agency and then you got a department. You want to be able to align those goals so that they can see you truly understand them and what they're trying to do. Okay, really quickly, I just want to talk about how you can align meetings to each step of the 7-step process that I teach. If you're not familiar with this, and I'll go off, well, I'll minimize myself a little bit. Yeah, there we go, so we can make it a little bigger. So I teach this 7-step process. When I was a government contractor for 20 years, it was just miserable. The only things we had available to us were these really super complicated sales processes out there. And so in 2018, when I started teaching people how to do government contracting, I took it and I just put down to this 7-step process. The first 3 steps are basically leading to the 4th step, a relationship. If you build relationships within an agency, now you're on what I call the wheel of success. And the wheel of success, the key about that is that it is actually, when you're on it, you're learning more and more about the agency and you generally don't come off it. And so those first 3 steps are driving towards it. When you have meetings at each step of the way, say you're going to have a meeting with somebody and you're in the research phase, you can ask them about, hey, I was trying to find a strategic plan, but I can't find it, or I can't get access to it, or I need access to a old PWS, things like that. That's research where you're gathering facts, et cetera. And then the same thing as you move into outreach, you're lining up. These meetings are the outreach, right? Especially today, we're talking about the first meeting you're going to have. That's outreach. Generally, we call this cold calling, right? You're calling somebody you've never called before. And all of those begin to align. When you have meetings with people in a relationship, you're building that relationship and you're learning about things. When you go into the opportunity and it's in the capture phase, that means before the RFP is dropped and the government is still thinking about how they want to shape that. When you have meetings, that's where I was describing you can influence the opportunity. Same thing with the proposal, right? If you start writing a proposal early enough, you can get in there and talk to people. All of this is coming from the amount of meetings that you have. And so it's really important that you try to build the relationships out there, enough of the relationships, and then have these meetings. Okay, I wanted to just point this out really quick. And actually, let me turn my camera off. I do these live training events almost every single business day. So if you'd like to make sure you don't miss one, just add our event to your calendar. You can ask us, or actually in the chat, I will put a link right now, and maybe somebody put a better title on it. But here's a link to the ad event, and then don't forget tomorrow or on Monday, 12/9, we're doing a networking event. We have over 100 people there, and I'd love to have you in there. It's a virtual networking event where we come together. We can network with each other in small groups of 7 to 10 people or something, and you meet several different groups of people. So you walk away with some good relationships. Make sure you register for that. Okay, so I'm going to use the rest of the time we have, 13 minutes. I'm doing pretty good on time. And I want to talk about 7 steps or 7 tips for landing more meetings with federal buyers, right? How do you get these meetings? I'm going to start going through these one at a time. The first way that, and I think one of the most important ways you can start getting more meetings and getting people to want to have the meetings with you is be findable and attractive. What findable and attractive means is that if somebody is trying to look for you, look for a company like you, they can find you. Attractive means their search intent is met. Here's what I mean by that. If somebody is searching for a company that does cybersecurity, and then they look at your marketing material, if everything is screaming cybersecurity, you've matched the search intent. You're an attractive company to them, and they want to put you on the short list to talk to you or whatever. But if they search for cybersecurity and they come in and they see you do like all these unrelated things and cybersecurity is in there, then that's not attractive to them, because they're looking for a company is pretty solid in there. So this is findable and attractive. The reason this is important to getting meetings is because if you try to reach out to somebody and they go research you before they respond to your email or your phone call, they might come in to DSBS or LinkedIn or whatever and look and go, nah, it's not that attractive to me, right? And so it's important for you to understand being findable and attractive. Like I mentioned before, I've done 100 trainings on this. So if you go to my previous trainings, you can search and find over 100 trainings I've done on visibility and being findable and attractive. Just type in findable and attractive and I'll come up in there. Not me, but the training. I'm findable and attractive too, right? Okay, so the second thing you can do to land more meetings once your company is findable and attractive is make sure your company is where buyers are looking. Quick example is DSBS, the Dynamic Small Business Search. Any of us who register to sell to the government, register in sam.gov. A companion tool that the government has that's run by the SBA, Small Business Administration, is DSBS, or the Dynamic Small Business Search Tool. And so those two tools make up your small business profile. That is a supplier portal. It's the #1 supplier portal for the government. It's where the federal buyers go to look. There are many other places they have as well. For example, you can go in and look at supplier portals. I just put out one for the Department of Homeland Security has an agency called Customs and Border Protection, CBP. In there, I just put out a newsletter, I think. I certainly put out a post that talks about how do you register with them to talk, but they have their own supplier portal. NavAir, a part of the Navy, has their own. So a lot of these agencies have their own supplier portals. Make sure you're in them. You can go to my LinkedIn profile and search on supplier portal. We've got a whole directory there we try to maintain. All right, the third one is as you're trying to get more meetings, I want you to build a target list of 200 people. Remember the 7-step process. Step 2 was targeting. I don't know if you noticed that, but it's targeting. And the whole idea of targeting is to say, this is the agency I want to get into. Here are the 200 people I can go after. And let me tell you how easy this is, right? It might not be easy to pick up the phone and make a phone call. It might not be easy to get them to respond, but it is very easy to build a list of 200 people. And here's an example. I just went to an opportunity, and in fact, I'll use the same one every time. SAMI, it's a Society of American Military Engineers, I think. This organization had a massive conference, a lot of people in there, and it was really impressive, 6,000 attendees. That sounds really cool, right? And there's all sorts of government people there. But keep in mind, the DoD alone has over 200,000 buyers. So one of the places you can go is you can go into LinkedIn and just target the agency you're trying to get into, the Navy, or if you come down and you say Nav War, or you come down and say PEO Digital, you can build 200 people in a particular office. I have done literally hundreds of trainings on how to find and reach out to these type of people, but you want to build a list. And this is an important step I don't want you to skip. Don't move on. If you want to land more meetings, start by building a spreadsheet or whatever tool you use, a spreadsheet of 200 people that you're going to reach out to. And the reason is because not all of them are going to be there. Not all of them are going to respond. Not all of them are going to give you a meeting. You need to reach out to a sufficient amount of people to be able to get the amount of meetings you want. And if you reach out to 200 people, you can be pretty much guaranteed that you're going to pick up 20 to 30 meetings guaranteed, right? If they're targeting into the agency you want to go, and all things being equal. The fourth one, and this goes back to the SAMI one, I'm saying ride the coattails of an event if you're trying to find people and if you're trying to have a conversation starter. An example is Sammy here. I mentioned this conference. I just did this. I'm a little confused, but I just did this today or yesterday. But I went in and somebody was looking for a particular person, and it led me to this event that Sammy had. And when I pulled it up, several things happened. I was able to see the slides that the agency presented. So in there, I got 50 people's names. But better yet, I was able to get an attendee list, and the attendee list had like 400 people on it. That's huge. And those attendees are many of them government, some of them were industry as well. But I'm able to look at that. And the reason I say ride the coattails of an event is there was one particular person, and I use this as an example again last night or this morning in a LinkedIn post that I put out. But I said, this is how I would reach out to this person. I wrote the step-by-step guide and I wrote the email that I would send out. But what I mean by riding the coattails of the event is in the opening line, I said, hey, I saw that Captain Adams had briefed at the Sammy event. I'm sorry I didn't get a chance to talk to you, something like that. And what I did is I instantly tied us, that person and me, to the same event that they were at. And so I'm just kind of riding the coattails. This another way you might do it is if there's a Super Bowl going on, right? This is commercial, but if there's a Super Bowl going on, you can try to talk about the Super Bowl in your marketing. It's called, well, I'm calling it riding the coattails. I think they call it long tail, but this idea of using an event somebody would recognize as a way to open up the email conversation, and it makes them go, maybe I'll talk to them, right? I instantly go, well, we're in the same market. Number 5, personalize each email. And this goes back to the Sammy event where inside there, I'm personalizing it by mentioning the person I was reaching out to. I mentioned actually their direct boss, who was the one who gave the presentation. So I personalized that email. Another example of personalizing it is something I taught one of the people on my team. We were reaching out on behalf of one of our workshop customers to a bunch of people. And I said, when you reach out, make sure you use the common name. And so here's what I mean. If I reach out to somebody in NAVC, I might reach out and send an email. And if I just copied whatever I pulled from the internet, it would say Naval Sea Systems Command. And it would seem silly if I reached out and inside there, I'm like, hey, I'd love to have a meeting and talk to you about Naval Sea System Command, to somebody who works at NAVC, which is the acronym and the way we call Naval Sea System Command, right? So if I say NAVC, then I'm kind of communicating, oh, this person knows, our language to a degree. That's what I mean by personalize it. If you have a company like Booz Allen Hamilton, don't call them Booz Allen Hamilton, call them BA. You can go into the company page and look at their about page, and you will see the full name, Booz Allen Hamilton. And when you scroll down, you'll see where they'll start calling themselves by the common name that's out there. All right, number 6, and I'm running out of time, is make sure you have only one ask. When you send an email, it should be clear and concise and a really short email, right? But in there, only ask for one thing. If you ask for 2 things, you'll always get the one you didn't want. If you want a meeting, don't ask for anything else in that email. I literally sit there and say, hey, are you available this week or next for a quick intro call? Right? It's a really straightforward thing. Yes or no is a totally acceptable answer. And the last one is increase your outreach. This is vital. If you want more meetings, you must reach out to hundreds of people. Once you have reached out to hundreds of people and you have had meetings and you have developed relationships, you will never have to reach out to hundreds of people again, because you have these relationships with people who will introduce you to the next one, introduce you to the next one. People will hear about you. But right now, if you're not at that stage, and it doesn't matter if you're experienced or new, if you're not at that stage in your target agency, then start with a lot more outreach. And outreach means a lot more personalized emails, a lot more phone calls. All right, here's what I want you to remember from today's training as you go forward. The first thing is make sure buyers can find you. In our workshop and in my processes when I teach, I call this visibility. Visibility is being findable and attractive. Make sure your buyers can find you, because if you want more meetings, guaranteed the people you reach out to are going to look at you first and go, do I want to meet with this person? Number 2, build a list of 200 people. We call this targeting, right? And again, in our workshop, it's visibility, targeting, and outreach. Targeting is where we build that list. We build a list like 400 people, but I want you to build a list of 200 people, and I want you to see how easy it is to build the list. Again, having the meeting and getting a sale, I get it, that's hard, but building a list should be pretty straightforward. Try it out. Ping me on LinkedIn if you're having challenges. And then number 3, expect 5 meetings a week. So when you do outreach and you literally are reaching out with one ask in an email and a clear email, and you're tying it to something that person cares about, and you're doing this 200 times, you're going to get to the stage where you got 5 meetings a week minimum, right? Everybody kind of comes through our workshop. Their challenge is now no longer getting in. It's figuring out, what do we do with all these relationships we have? And that's where we want to get you to, is having more meetings that you can then start driving in the direction you want them to go. All right, hopefully that all made sense. If it did, put meetings into the chat. Let me know that you understand what needs to be done and that you're going to do it. If you're interested in our help in doing this kind of stuff, we run a BD Accelerator workshop. Again, it's visibility, targeting, and outreach. It's designed to accelerate you into an agency. It's for companies that've got some traction. So usually we say 2 million plus in revenue. If that's something you're interested in learning more about, put workshop into the chat. The last time I'm offering this workshop is the end of December here, and that's for all of 2025. So after December, we're not going to offer the workshop again. We're going to shift our focus somewhere else. So if you're interested in having our support, working with us directly, we'd love to talk to you about it. Just put workshop in the chat. Either way, make sure you register for tomorrow's training about why buyers aren't calling you. I'll give you some tips there. And then the other thing is make sure you join us on 12/9, Monday coming up, for the virtual networking event. I'm driving back from Pennsylvania for this, so I hope you're going to be here to join me. I will see you in the next training. Remember, government contracting, it's not a secret. It's just a process.